Right. But even with the options of interracial dating.
Yes.
So what I'm saying to you is, if you have a bunch of men and they're saying, okay, I can't find a suitable Black woman to marry, I'm dating other women and they're still not marrying. They have the lowest marriage rates among all men across culture, across races, right?
Yes.
Would that not also need to be considered?
Yes, that should also be considered. But think about this for a moment, right? If the man prefers a Black woman, he doesn't see a suitable option. He then moves, right? The preference is Black woman. Why did he move? Why did he go to another direction and not go with his preference? Because he doesn't see that there is a wife in the Black community suitable to his liking. So he goes somewhere else, right? Now, if he goes somewhere else and he doesn't find what he is looking for, then there's a necessary thing that he should look within if he's the issue. The majority of guys are remaining single, Black men are remaining single because one article talked about that they are able to still get sex and not have to be married. And who is in charge of sex?
So again, I agree, but that would still be a man's problem, right? Because if he can marry, if he's not finding anybody, he too will be a problem. His marriage rate should not be. So what I'm saying to you is, I get that, you know, you only want to marry a Black woman, right? But the reality of it is, there are also white women who have Black babies who are not married. There are many cultures of women who have Black babies who are not married. So my thing would be, are Black men not wanting to marry? Would that not be an issue? Because it's not just an issue with Black women, it's also an issue when they date other women as well.
Welcome back to the channel. You see the information on the screen, so you already know what I'm about. So let's get into it. So this particular video is from the Peef Network. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. Again, you know, it'll probably have like some kind of link where you can actually go check it out. And this particular video, I already did one video from it. This is the second one from it. And honestly, it's 15 minutes long, and it is, to me, a very good video with a lot of good insights. So I'm already, you know, pretty much in love with this. Probably about the best video, in my opinion, that has, you know, entertained me and informed me. And that's generally what I am looking for, you know, when I'm out here trying to find a video for myself. That being said, you know, I definitely thank the people over there for putting that video together. And in this particular clip, you know, you're dealing with Shan and Humble Dad. And what they're basically, you know, going through is that, you know, Shan is trying to make the argument about not just interracial relationships, but she's also, I believe, trying to make the argument about, okay, why are Black men, when you start to look at a lot of other races, why are Black men just not getting married, period? Like when you know, compare Black men to white men, when you compare them, you know, to Latino men, when you compare them all over the place, and even when they do date outside of their culture, they're not always marrying the woman outside of their culture. So I think we have to start kind of where Humble Dad was starting, and then we can move up. Most Black men want to marry someone in their race, someone that looks like them. That is the most comfortable for almost every single culture. Okay? It does not always happen. Okay? And I'm okay with that. But people need to go ahead and lock it in, especially a lot of Black women. They need to get that excuse off the table. Okay? You need to take that excuse and take it off the table. Well over 9 out of 10 Black men would marry a Black woman if they had the opportunity. Like less than 15%, maybe up to 17 or 18% now date outside of their race/culture. And I truly believe, as Humble Dad was kind of alluding to, is that if you gave them the opportunity to get the personality and the energy and the wife-like qualities that they're looking for within a Black woman, they would choose the Black woman over going to another race. I do believe that there are some Black people that really do like the features of other cultures. But I actually think that is few and far between. And when we start lining people up and we start to say, okay, we took 100, you know, Black men and 100 Black women and we put them in a room, I'm letting you know on both sides. Okay, 25 to 30% of both sides, men or women, if we just took them at random, not the perfect set, but we took them at random, 30% of people would 100% disqualify themselves just by their everyday life. And I've talked about that over and over again. I've talked about health. I've talked about, wearing decent clothes, honestly about hygiene, different things like that people don't like to talk about. But let's be real. There are people out here that they don't care about those things. And that automatically eliminates you. So for most women, you're not really competing against every woman. You're only dealing with a certain amount. And if you're doing what you need to do and you get yourself in certain spaces, you're going to meet more men, okay, that line up. But again, you can't come in believing that every man is going to be this perfect man. Same thing, every man can't go in believing every woman is going to be this perfect woman. So I want to make sure I start there and just say straight up that when it boils down to it, most men are going to prefer to be with people of their own culture. All right. And I think most women would, really go down that path as well. So I think we need to stop using that as an excuse. Now, to get to, again, a little bit more of what I think Shan was trying to say in this particular clip is that she's talking about, okay, how many black men are even getting married, period. And to her point, I do agree. Now, they go into it a little bit more and they start talking more about marriage, worthy women. But in this particular scenario, what we're really getting at, okay, is the black men that are going to get married, period. Okay, so we do need to look at that. And the first thing I do think you have to look at is you have to look at how many black men have seen marriage. And this is one of those things that more and more black people are talking about. And I think that's really where she needed to lean, because I think that kind of makes her argument. Because we have 20 to 30%, depending upon what statistic you look at, of black people that actually come from two-parent households, where they had two parents for a good portion of their growing up. All right. Those are the people that generally want to be married the most because they see the benefit of it. They saw two people working it out. And I'll give you a little bit about, me growing up. I had both my parents, like I say, until I was 19. But my parents never worked together. They never worked well together. It was always a fight. They weren't a team. Okay, I cannot remember a time in my life, honestly, where they were a team. My mom did stuff against my dad. My dad was trying to do things a certain way. And I don't want to blame either one of them. But I will say that is some of the problems that I know I took into my marriage, just to be honest. And those things ended up, being some of the things that destroyed, my marriage. And that's why I ended up in divorce. But what people do is they literally mimic their own life. Whether they're recognizing it or not, we naturally mimic our own life. And the only way that we're going to stop that is that we have to, quote unquote, draw a line in the sand and then say, okay, I'm going to do things differently from now on. And that's why I've told you, unless you have come from an environment where you have like two generations of parents that were loving, kind, they were good to each other, they knew how to, do marriage right, really didn't have too many problems. I mean, everybody's going to have some kind of problem, but they didn't have too many problems. And then you went through that and your siblings went through that and you had that for 18 years. If you had that, I'm going to say, okay, you get a pass. But if you did not have that, which I'm going to think is probably about 85 to 90% of black people, okay, you need to have everything from counseling to, going to marriage conferences, to reading books, to doing everything you can to protect your marriage. Because if you believe that your marriage is going to be okay without you doing any extra work, you are just opening yourself up for destruction. I'm just going to be honest. It's just you're doing it. And so to Shan's point, the men that are actually ready for marriage, that are actually marriage worthy, okay, those men are actually few and far between. Now, Humble Dad comes in later and he talks about it a little bit more because he's seeing that he runs into a lot of black men that are ready. I'll be honest, I run into a decent amount of black men that are ready. But it's like I've said on this channel, when you're dealing with the people that are truly ready, it's not that many of them. And that's why I say it's hard for good people to find good people. It's hard for good women to find good men, and good men to find good women. And then out here on these spaces, you have people that are constantly trying to corrupt them. Even if they are good, there are people constantly trying to corrupt them. When I first, got divorced, I spent a lot of time, on social media. I was trying to find out what was going on in the dating spaces, this, that, and the third. And after a certain amount of time, I ended up very, very strongly in the red pill community. There was a lot of anger that I felt, a lot of frustration, from going through the divorce. And so a lot of those men echoed that emotion. But after a certain amount of time, I was like, I don't know how these people, this is not feeling right. And so I started to lean myself away from those. And I'll be honest, I actually got away from social media almost 100%. Because I recognized that those people weren't speaking into a future that I wanted, right? And see, that is part of the thing, because even though I know I'm a husband, I know I walk in husband energy, I could not allow that community, and I'm not saying all the people in that community, but some of them in that community, to corrupt me, to make me believe that every single woman is bad, that this over here is bad, that this over here is bad, that every woman wants this or every woman wants that. Because that's what they do. They paint with a very broad brush, and is generally saying that most women are bad. And one of the things that as I started to pray and really go into, things, I just really started to understand that a lot of what they're complaining about is the same thing that a lot of feminists complain about when it comes to men. There are things about men and or women, that are innate to that gender. And when you start to argue with things that are innate to that gender, it's basically bumping your head up against a brick wall. That's why I came up with the non-negotiables, and I noticed that a lot of other people also have something similar with these non-negotiables, because it's one of those things, if you study people for a certain amount of time, you're like, well, really, men and women are so alike. What are we really fighting over? And as you start to understand what we're fighting over the non-negotiables. Women spend a lot of time being very concerned about their attractiveness. They try to encourage men over and over again to see them, without the lens of being beautiful. They come up with every excuse in the world. And then they'll say, well, that's not fair. And beauty fades, and they'll come up with everything and even quote scripture to try to, get men to stop thinking that way. But men are never going to stop thinking that way. It's a non-negotiable. The woman who positions herself by being more attractive is going to win. That's just how it is. It's always going to be like that. It's going to be like that 500, years from now. And for a lot of the men, the man who has money is going to be able to position himself. Men can come out. We say, oh, it's not fair. Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to have all this money? I don't know if I'll ever be able to make $250,000 a year. That's only 10% of the population. That's so unfair. It's always going to be that way. That's how women are. So we cannot fight against the non-negotiables. It doesn't mean we won't find our person. But we recognize that these things exist. And so it's silly to fight against them. It's better to understand them and then to navigate yourself in a space where you turn those non-negotiables into a win for yourself. And see, that's when I talk about somebody turning someone against themselves. A lot of influencers out here, they even, like I say, they try to do it with women. They try to say all these really great women, but then they teach them to manipulate. And when the woman has actually taken that in, and maybe she was walking as a wife, but now this energy comes upon her, and now she's a manipulator. She's not just a wife anymore. She's a wife plus a manipulator. So now, to, Humble Dad's point is that now, she's coming in. And so a man that has discernment about who a wife is supposed to be, he's not going to marry her. She thinks she's going to win, but she generally is going to win. That particular type of woman is only going to win with a man that's really not ready, or he hasn't had enough experience, or he, is just kind of in that perfect, scenario, for him to be taken back by her. But see, it works the same way for women. Women that have put themselves in situations where they let this man that's a manipulator, even though he might have had some husband qualities, but he comes in, manipulates her, and now he hurts her. So this understanding, between the two, a lot of the times is, and like I say, trying to make sure that I get Shan's point fully, explained. Because what she's seeing is she's saying, okay, I just don't see that black men want to get married. And what Humble Dad is saying, the black men in his life, which is probably saying black men that are in my life, okay, want to get married. And so what I'm agreeing with really is both of them, because from Shan's perspective, there might be, like I said, 20% of men that are ready 100% to truly get married because their dads taught them, they were in the right environment, they did everything they needed to do as far as financially and to get themselves right and to do their hygiene or whatever it is. But to Humble Dad's point, it's the same thing. Those men are ready, but where are the women that are ready? And what I would argue is it's about the same amount. However, to Humble Dad's point, and I've seen this myself, is that a lot of women who come up under fathers, and I did a video a long time ago, but it didn't get a lot of love, but a lot of men that have daughters, they teach their daughters, they don't even know they're doing it, they're teaching their daughters how to be sons. They'll do things like teach their daughters how to change the oil in the car because they'll say, well, I want to make sure you're in a position where you don't have to wait on a man to change the oil in your car. They'll teach their daughters how to do all these business deals and different things like that. So in essence, the woman is walking with a lot of masculine energy. And a lot of men that have that level, they're not looking for that. And so what happens is through that process, even some fathers have actually created a scenario where their daughters can't win. Because now when their daughters are coming out and they're trying to find a husband, the men are looking like, you changed the oil in your car? I don't want, my woman to change the oil in my car. That's not a benefit to me. I don't see why, that would be something I would care about. And the woman might be very proud of that, because that was what her daddy taught her. And so she came up under this environment of two parents loving each other and caring about each other and doing all this stuff. But now there's things that are sitting on top, like if she's making a lot of money. A lot of women are so proud of that. They're so proud that they make all this money. But then a lot of men, they don't care about that as much. And see, that's the thing, especially when those things that the women are proud of goes against the non-negotiables. If a woman is saying, just to give you an example, if a woman is saying, I have this job and through this job, I'm making $150,000 a year and I'm able to do this and do that. And but it does take a lot of my time and it's taking 50 hours a week. And because of that, I'm not cooking as well. I don't really do a lot of that stuff. And, and because of that, I'm not really good at cooking and I really don't clean. I have a maid come in and stuff like that. And now she ends up talking to a man and he's kind of looking at her like, well, I like the fact that, you could bring this money and we would have more money and we could do more stuff. But honestly, I like a woman to cook. And so she's thinking, well, that's kind of not fair because that's not who I am. And he's thinking, but I could get this other woman who makes $75,000 a year and she cooks. And that's kind of what I'm saying. So sometimes I think that our society has done things, and even sometimes even in the home, they've done things where they've kind of encouraged women to take on tasks or to believe in certain things. And like I've seen that even with a lot of the women that come out to Christian Singles Connect, because they're always giving me this laundry list of things that men have told them that they have to do. And I'm always saying, where did you get that list from? Because they love to blame it on me. They love to say, well, Jay, you said. And I said, no. I was like, don't say that's me. I have not told you that. I was like, I've never told you that you have to be Superwoman. I've never even told you, honestly, that you even have to have a job. I've never told you that you have to do anything but the non-negotiables. And then after that, take ownership of the man. Those are the only 4 things that I really have said over and over again on this channel when I've done things in Christian Singles Connect. Those are the things. If you talk about natural hair versus wigs versus weaves, that depends upon the man. If you talk about makeup, no makeup, that depends upon the man. If you're talking about heels, no heels, that depends upon the man. If you're talking about the exact size of your body, as far as, a little bit thick or skinny or in the middle, that depends upon the man. If you're talking about breast, implants and also a BBL, that depends upon the man. So those are not things that I encourage, because every man is going to want a different thing. And that's why I'm always telling women and men, maximize who you are in yourself. Just maximize you. So if you're the type of woman, who wants to wear heels, wear them. Wear them. And if a man tells you to stop wearing them, you basically say, you're not my man. And if you're the type of woman, that doesn't want to wear heels, and then you run into a man who wants you to wear heels, then you basically like, you're not my man. And be okay with that. But what I'm always, encouraging people to do is sit back and think about, and this is the only time I really lean on celebrities for this, but sit back and think about a celebrity man in your life that you look up to, or like I say, a woman as well for the men that are watching, but somebody that you can see, maybe a celebrity. I know a lot of women might, think about celebrities, but you can also just think about somebody in the community, somebody like your pastor or whoever, somebody you respect. And then after you think about that, think about, what do their wives look like? So if you say, I want a man like this, like whatever type of man, you can envision, now you have to say, what does that person want? That's what you have to say. Like I joke about, my celebrity baby mama, her, and I talk about that all the time. And I use her in a lot of different ways because I want to show people the dynamic between me and her, because it's a huge dynamic. You got a woman probably making $50 million or more a year versus me, and I'm not even making $1 million. So let's say for right now, I wanted truly to marry her. I wanted to. There's been people that have said stuff like that. And Nick Cannon said he wanted to marry Mariah Carey way before he was Nick Cannon. Okay. And even Jermaine Dupri dated Janet Jackson, somebody he grew up, watching on TV. So it's not impossible. So if I wanted to marry her, what I would have to do is I would have to find a way to get this channel plus some other media stuff working to the point where I start to rival her's money. That's really all I have to do. If I could rival the amount of money that she makes, because our personalities aren't exactly the same, but what I do know of her, like from watching, behind the scenes and, interviews and stuff like that, she's actually seems to be a decent person, and we seem to have some similarities. So I don't think if I ever met her in person, it would be our personalities that would cause the problem. The problem is the finances. So I would have to overcome that. And if I overcome that, then at that point, she comes into my dating pool. And after that, I will have to position myself by trying to find out where she lives and, even some of the parties and or events that she might frequent. Therefore, that would give me the opportunity to actually meet her. Do you understand how this is working? So it's the same thing for women and or men. You have to think about the type of person that you want, and then think about how much work you're going to put in to get there. And if you're saying, well, I'm not willing to put in any work, then you have to find out, from the people who look like you, who are they married to? And that, again, shows you who your man or who your woman is. Because, see, all those things kind of go together. And I know it's not just about appearance. It's not. It's not just about appearance. It's about energy and a lot of other things like that. Spirituality, whether somebody's Christian or not. So it's a lot of things. But what I'm trying to get you to understand, through this process is that there are things that you can do in order to align yourself. And so even when you're going back to Shan's original point and you're trying to talk about, okay, these black men, because I think that's really where she's getting at, these black men. Okay, how do I get to these black men? Where are these black men? Are the black men ready to get married? Do they want to get married? Well, the whole thing is, Humble Dad is saying that they exist. I say that they exist. There's men on this channel that will confirm that they exist. But the bottom line is, of those men, are you around them? And then can you pick them out when you see them? And do you have a fantasy about them that is not real? And I believe that that is the key, to getting these particular women married and to basically helping them find their person, and also for the men to do it as well. Because men, you have to do it, as well. Like I said, you got to get out as well. You can't sit in your house and believe that, again, Amazon's going to deliver you a wife either. All right. So anyway, remember in February 14th, we actually have an event here in Atlanta. So those in Atlanta, if you have not already signed up for that, you might want to. It is a first come, first serve thing. We're only going to be able to take so many people. It's a Valentine's Day ball, so it should be fun. We plan to have a DJ and photography and all the other kind of good stuff. So it should be really cool. It's going to be our first major event, for Christian Singles Connect and Christian Millennials Connect. So you can see the information on the screen. You can go check that out. Also, remember that every other Thursday we do a Zoom live out here where we have discussion. So anyway, remember to like and subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.